Good morning, ODE. I'm Isaac Smith.
And I'm Emery Deaton, and this is your ODE News.
Today is Thursday, March 17th, 2022.
Today is the 131st day of school. Only 49 days until the end of the year.
Now let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing until after a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Your lunch choices here today are smoked sausage or PB&J.
With mac and cheese!
Sheesh! Sheesh! I don't know what to do.
Today's weather will be partly cloudy with a high of 72. Oh my gosh. That's disappointing.
We hope all of you who made leprechaun traps were able to catch one.
Did you know that the chance of finding a four-leaf clover are about 1 in 10,000?
Sheesh!
Hi, I'm Ms. Axton Jones. I'm one of the reading interventionists here at Ocean Drive Elementary. And the book I've chosen to read to you today is Maisie McGillicuddy's Sheep Got Muddy. And the reason I chose this book is for St. Patrick's Day, which is coming up pretty soon on March 17th. Now, Maisie McGillicuddy's Sheep Got Muddy is a story about a little girl whose best friend is a sheep named Shamrock. And Shamrock gets lost, and in this story, Maisie is trying to find her best friend. Let's start on the first page. In the hills of Kilcar, between the green grass and stone, stood a wee cozy cottage, a little girl's home. And that's really typically what some of the rural areas of Ireland look like. Young Maisie, a lass full of spunk and of sass, with hair like a sunset and eyes of sea glass, spent her days among wildflowers and soft emerald grass, spying shapes in the clouds as they floated on past. By her side faithfully was the runt of the flock, a wee sheep with a smit mark shaped like a shamrock. Now, a smit mark is a little painted mark that farmers would make on their sheep so they could tell their sheep from the other farmer's sheep. So Shamrock had a little mark that the farmer put on him, and it was green and it looked like a little shamrock. He listened intently to her when she talked, and he'd dance to the notes that she'd play when they'd walk. 'Twas early one morn, through a gate left unlocked, the sheep wandered alone, and he slipped on a rock. He stumbled, then tumbled, then came to a stop at the foot of the hill in some mud with a plop. As he lay on his back in the mud, upside down, Shamrock saw that his snowy white fleece had turned brown. Then he tossed and he kicked and he let out a bleat when a black and white dog came and nipped at his feet. Shamrock scurried and hid between two fluffy cows with eyes wide. The sheep wondered, just where was his house? The dog herded and snapped as he ran left and right round the cows and poor Shamrock till they huddled up tight. With the sound of their hooves on a cold steel floor, Shamrock heard a man's voice, then the slam of a door. Afraid and confused and impossibly stuck, he was now heading south on the back of a truck. When she couldn't find Shamrock on his usual patch of bright yellow buttercups and green meadow grass, Maisie went to the gate with her heart beating fast, where she found the sheep's blue silky scarf on the latch. She called out his name, knowing something was wrong, as she wondered just where in the world had he gone. She knew that he hadn't been gone for too long, so she pulled out her flute and she played him a song. Shamrock watched emerald hillsides that were dotted with sheep and saw miles upon miles of stone walls. It was when the truck stopped so the driver could sleep that the icy cold raindrops would fall. He gazed at the shoreline from between the brown cows and had never before felt so small. Then he lay his head down with a sad little frown. Drifting off to the gulls' echoed calls, it rained off and on for most of the night, perplexing the man, the cows, at first light. 'Twas only a startling and curious sight when they saw poor Shamrock's brown fur had turned white. The cows caused a ruckus with this newfound surprise, which distracted the man who was trying to drive. The truck stopped on a curve near some wee, vibrant homes where the man pulled the sheep from the back, all alone. With the slam of the door, the brown cows and the man disappeared down the street. And they left poor Shamrock standing there on the street all by himself. Meanwhile, back up north, Maisie started her quest to search high and search low and search east and search west. She went to the place where the cliffs and sea crest would quadruple the odds of him hearing her best. Surrounded by stone and by sky and by sea, she climbed to the peak of the massive Slieve Leagues, and those are the big mountains. She prayed that the wind gusts would carry her songs, then she stayed on the edge of that cliff all day long. With no sign of Shamrock, Maisie wandered and roamed, heading further and further away from her home. She found a brief refuge neath a beacon of light, cutting through the bright stars and dark sky. It was when she decided to stop for the night that young Maisie then started to cry. Her worries consumed her and robbed her of sleep. Just where in the world was her lost little sheep? Meandering up a steep slope of a climb, feeling grateful because he was free, Shamrock stopped for a much-needed break for some time in the wildflowers overlooking the sea. He napped and he grazed and he sat and he pondered, not quite knowing just what to do next. And he thought about home and that morning he wandered and the way it had led to this mess. Then a small herd of black and white cows came along, gathering around this poor lost little sheep. They listened as Shamrock explained what was wrong. In a prattle of rambling bleats, they gave him the courage to keep moving on across fields and bridges and streets. And he thought about Maisie, her flute and her songs, and the day that they'd once again meet. Maisie's journey continued to a place by the sea full of columns and structures and stones. She longed for some buttered brown bread with some tea and the simple, sweet comforts of home. With his blue satin ribbon tied up in her hair, and knowing poor Shamrock could be anywhere, she played songs into sea spray and the wind and the air, next to 3 playful puffins who were nesting near there. Subservient sheep shuffling down by a dock unwittingly merged Shamrock in with their flock. The flustered sheep clusters were easy to muster onto boats using cans of cracked corn. Left slightly uneasy and terribly queasy, they climbed out at the sound of a horn. Wobbly, uncertain, and clumsy first steps soon turned to a steady and sure-footed trek up a winding stone pathway, a stronghold that led to a place for the sheep who had smit marks of red. So he doesn't belong in with these. They all have the red marks, and he has the green smit mark that looks like a shamrock. That same day up north, Maisie searched far and wide, pressing onward, suspended between the vast sea and sky, steadfast and determined, using faith as her guide, seeking only to gain her wee sheep by her side. With an ominous weave, the gnarled branches and trees seemed to take hold of Maisie and surround her and squeeze. So she steadied her shoulders and remembered to breathe, and she quietly whispered the words, "Just believe." 'Twas late the next day when, to Shamrock's dismay, the man driving the cart shouted out, "Stow away!" The sheep scrambled and scurried from the spot where he lay, falling onto the street as the cart drove away. Feeling cornered and stuck and quite down on his luck, he stayed in that spot till the sky turned to dusk. With no sense of direction, unsure where to go, Shamrock followed the cobblestone path which led to a lane, then a street, then a bridge, and then to some railroad tracks. Under moonlight and stars, the sheep wandered quite far, till he spotted the door of a boxcar ajar. Overnight, the train traveled to a bustling town square. When it stopped, the sheep woke up with a start. Shamrock knew right away he was meant to be there, feeling gladness and peace in his heart. He took in the sights and the smiles and the sounds, and the change in the air felt immensely profound as he cheerfully strolled and meandered around this new, lively, and vibrant, incredible town. On her way the same day, with the sun on her face, wailing through the apple trees bloomed, persisting ahead with unwavering faith, she believed that she'd find her sheep soon. Feeling hope in her heart and covered in grace, Maisie took a deep breath and picked up her pace. It was just before dark when she came to a park, a kaleidoscope of rich shades of green. Maisie played a sweet song that came from her heart. It was tranquil and soft and serene. The notes floated on air, reaching all who were there, from the squirrels to the swans to the kids, to the mums and the dads and the green lily pads, to the trees and an old stony bridge. Shamrock entered the park through a massive stone arch near a wee little house on a path. He could hear the sweet song from a shy meadowlark in the air as he made his way past. It was somewhere between all the rich shades of green, from the shrubs to the trees to the grass, that he'd cross a small bridge where his one single wish would come true, causing Shamrock to gasp. The sheep leapt, and he splashed, and he frantically dashed. He had never before in his life moved so fast. That music, that hair, she was right over there. The moment he dreamt of had happened at last. In a swirl of commotion, 'neath the treetops and sky, Maisie stood by the water in shock, overcome with emotion as she looked with wide eyes. Was this sheep in the lake her Shamrock? Amidst the soft sounds of two long-tailed magpies' exuberant laughs soon replaced her stunned cries as they hugged and they danced to this wondrous surprise. They made their way back across the green emerald aisle with twinkling eyes and ear-to-ear smiles, enjoying each step of the road all the while. Home, sweet home in Kilcar with the rest of their flock, Maisie celebrated and rejoiced along her Shamrock. The two danced and they talked and they went for long walks to the edge of their land by the wall made of rocks and the newly built wrought iron gate, which was locked. And that is the end.
Here's your joke of the day. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Irish.
Iris who?
I wish you a happy St. Patrick's Day. Ha 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 ha, how funny, ha 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 ha.
That's all for today. I'm Isaac Smith.
And I'm Emery Dean. See you tomorrow from our ODE.
Happy St. Patrick's
Cut it out, cut it out.
Day!
Sounds happy.
It's actually